Hey guys, and welcome back to Castle Crush, and the new balance update is now live. You can see the details here. They're also on Discord, and again, there's this post in the game that says all the different details, which cards got buffed and nerfed here. So some interesting changes, especially because some of these are cards I play with on a regular basis. Namely, the Fire Elemental is a card I play with a lot. So that deck that I've been using a lot probably won't work quite as well now, but we'll see. It might not though, because I also have the double mana ritual in there, although to be fair, a lot of the time I don't necessarily use it that way, but sometimes I do for either the Valkyrie or for getting the Black Knight out if I don't have any other good opener. So here I got Skeleton Swarm leveled up finally to 13 with max 14 unlocked. First card I've done that with. After all these years, yeah, I haven't really been prioritizing leveling cards that much. I haven't really invested as much into this game as a lot of players have, especially who've been around as long as I've played for. You know, I think mostly just because I didn't really need to for making the type of content that I made. So I decided to get in here and try out the Enchanter a little bit, although I don't necessarily think this was the best way to sort of test it, because I was trying to use it with my Catapult deck again, but the reality is it already pushed it basically back to the castle mostly, so it's not like this really is taking advantage of its increased range that much, although I think it does a little bit. So basically this is just a Catapult deck with Boneyard, Golem, Dwarf, Spiked Statue, Catapult. And the Boneyard does early game damage, and then the Catapult kind of comes in the mid game with some of these other cards to block for it. But it is a little bit exposed, admittedly. You know, there's no protection, there's no rage. It's kind of an exposed Catapult deck. Although the Boneyard I think is helpful because it blocks demons a lot of the time. So it's useful from that perspective. And it makes it harder for them to maybe play Black Witch. So Enchanter, trying to use that to maintain positioning. Boneyard's also good for positioning. The Catapult. And we're just going to try and get some damage on their castle. Unfortunately, this person's pushing through, so I am thinking, what can we do? This is looking okay. Well, okay, we lost our damage, but we still have positioning, so I can play the other Catapult. See what they've got. We've got our Dwarf. Dwarf is a good, fast, cheap blocker for Catapults. And we have two lanes we can still place Catapults in. A lot of this deck is about trying to maintain Catapult positioning, because obviously if you get backed up on your end of the board, it's very hard to be successful with a Catapult. So that one worked out in the end. Let's try this again here. Seemed like I made some mistakes in this match, really with that Storm Elemental. So the problem here is that they have a Siege Ballista behind that Storm Elemental, so I realized I couldn't really just play Ice Elemental against it, and then I got kind of outnumbered here quickly, which wasn't very good. And they have, you know, they had Ice Elemental, they survived with that initial Storm Elemental. I do run a Spiked Statue in here, but by the time I got it out here, it was kind of too late. Really kind of too late by this point. And I just kind of got overwhelmed, unfortunately. So, went back in here. The biggest problem I was having this morning was that I couldn't seem to get matches very quickly. It was taking me like, I was waiting like, 30 seconds to a minute or more. Not that that sounds like that long, but it was getting annoying. So, I decided to go play some all-in instead. I didn't really have a good all-in deck, so I was like, well, I mean, I did, but it was kind of old, so I was like, let's try something new. So I put the Enchanter in here with Catapult, and I was like, let's try it in here. And we're trying Orc Horde as well, but honestly, the mana change doesn't really affect it in here because, well, everything costs 0 mana. So also using Fire Elemental, which got nerfed in theory, but honestly, Fire Elemental is still useful because of its... This doesn't really decrease its ability to jump over things and, you know, deal with rushing, deal with necromancers, hit the castle. Fire Elemental, I think, still has a lot of utility to it. So this doesn't really remove Fire Elemental from the meta in certain situations. It just tones it down a little bit in certain spots. Especially it's 1 versus 1 versus other troops. Since it was a minus 7% HP decrease. But again, they didn't decrease the Fire Elemental's damage, was my impression. So it still hits the castle pretty well. And there are a lot of decks that use it to hit the castle. So yeah, I was still finding Fire Elemental to be perfectly suitable in all-in, because it gets in there and puts pressure on their castle. You can use it in combination with Black Witch in this mode pretty easily. Catapult still working really well in this game mode. Enchanter I found helpful. Right there, it held off that Black Knight. So I'll have to go back and look, but I didn't notice, like, I mean, I guess the range was increased a little bit. I'm not sure how much that's really going to affect it or not. Like I said, I felt like the Enchanter from this sort of midfield spot already pushed stuff almost back to the castle, so I'm not really sure how much the ability increase is going to impact catapult decks. But what else do you use Enchanter for? I guess there's going to be people who will theory craft something. I'm not really the best competitive player, so I don't really have a whole lot of Enchanter theory crafting to suggest at the moment. The damage increase was perhaps something that could be useful. But again, managed to get another win with this deck. This deck was doing fine in all-in. It was able to get me my victory chest in a reasonable amount of time. So, despite the fact that 2 of the cards in here theoretically got nerfed, the Orc Horde, but that didn't really affect it for this game mode. And then the Fire Elemental. Yeah, Orc Horde still good as ever in this game mode. Especially for blocking lanes for Catapult. Interesting here, I got 2 Enchanters out, so they were doing some damage, actually. And this match was close. It was close, but Fire Elemental came in clutch. So there that was, and that's probably going to do it for this video. I'll do some more videos probably talking about more specific cards here from the update in the future. I just couldn't get that many matches this morning for some reason. I think it's because it was the end of the season, so people probably weren't playing ranked very much, or they were just like sitting on their trophies or something like that. Or maybe it's because the update just happened. I don't know. But either way, nice to get a balance update for the first time in a long time, and I'm interested to see if some of these cards will end up, like Enchanter, will end up being more relevant. We'll see. We'll see. But either way, very interesting stuff. Let me know what you're doing with the new update. So leave a like if you enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next video.